Okay, that is working, except that probably not as fortunately as I would like to, because I'll be away from the sound, and that's not very good. Anyway, doesn't matter, we've got a picture. So why did you want to look at that graph? Don't worry about all of these things, they kind of relevant, but not today. Okay, why did we want to look at this graph? Why is it important? Because that's the structure of the essay, quite a lot. Quite actually a lot of the essay will be in here, right? It's a map also, so if it is for the essay, what will it be also useful for? Assignment 2. Because that's a map in which, why? Because what does it actually show us? The curriculum, right? Actually showing how the relationships in the curriculum work, how to read the curriculum, because usually people sit somewhere there, or they look at that, not here, somewhere, and they don't even organize it this way, but even if they did, so they have outcomes for each year, and they teach to the outcomes of each year. And it gets worse when you go to schools, because what it is, education is a series of misunderstandings that get perpetuated from generation to generation, year in and year out. So it goes like this. Nobody remembers that unless on paper you have to justify it. So you just, work with text and you just put on paper, we did that, right? Then nobody remembers that unless on paper you have to justify it. So you sort of invent a story. That nobody even remembers, because that's a kind of like sociology, so who would know? And then we have year in and year 2 and year 3 and 5-year-olds and 2-year-olds and all of that. We have particular understandings of what should be targeted. And what people think that the target or outcomes for year 0, 1, 2, 3 are the things you have to teach. So today, what did they say? Cross-cultural, knowing the difference between one text and the next text. Children, today we will be learning knowing the difference between one text and the next text, right? Then they read, okay, children should be knowing blah, blah. Okay, today, children, we will be learning the difference between English and French. Did you know that there is French? So what kind of concept of a child does one have when they teach this way? It's like a bucket. It's like a bucket, and today we pour this outcome, tomorrow we pour this outcome. And then, now don't get me wrong, I am not necessarily for NAPLAN. I really don't understand much of it, and I understand that there are problems. But the biggest problem, oh, not biggest, but one of the main problems I see with NAPLAN is not necessarily NAPLAN itself, is how NAPLAN is interpreted then by schools. And again, if NAPLAN says, you've got to produce what do you call it, this argumentative writing, persuasive writing, right? So what do schools teach? If they know that NAPLAN will test for persuasive writing, what will you teach in classroom? Now, have you ever tried the racist theory, that there are races and blacks are bad and whites are good, on a 1-year-old? Try it. On a 1-year-old. Racism on a white-year-old. They even have no clue they're white. Right? So then they go to they meet people of different kind, and some people still don't teach them that there is a difference between this and that, right? But someone else decided that we will make a difference. We could actually, like in Poland we do, you don't know that, but in Poland we differentiate between freckly and not freckly people. You really don't want to be freckly. Why is that? Because Polish people are Slavs, and Slavs come from Mongolia. And most of us will have a skin which is relatively yellowish, darkish. And the Slavs, like from Croatia and older Yugoslavia, are completely black. I mean, the idea that they've come from Europe is loony. Right? So in Poland, we don't differentiate between black and white. We don't really see many of people. Nowadays we do, but when I was little, we didn't. But we do differentiate between freckly and non-freckly. You don't want to be freckly in Poland. There's a lot of myths that come with freckly white skin. Freckly skin and then white skin, both of them no good. Honestly, so you can pick anything, right? You can pick anything. Girls who wear check dresses, right? Oh my God, there's something wrong with them. Girls who wear red dresses, there's something wrong with them, and so on. Never stops. But how do you learn? How do you learn that there is a difference, even if whether you believe or not? How do we learn that there is a difference between one feature and another feature? By having been exposed to both, or even more, right? How can you learn persuasive writing if you haven't been exposed to other writings? So what happens, this mentality that you never look up because who wants to fly? We're all ants, and we're turning our children into ground dwellers, you know, like those chickens. We're all looking at the outcomes for levels for year 0, year 1, year 2. We never look up. So we teach to these low-level things, and then we get, of course, terrified when someone says, persuasive writing. Oh my God, this semester or for the next three months, we'll be doing persuasive writing only. If you sang one song, would you be able to appreciate songs? If you never saw in your life any text, any other emotion, but just one song, would you appreciate it? You have to contrast. So you know that Shakespeare is different from me writing a drama. You look at the things I write and you go like, Ania, we don't even look at it, let alone read it, right? Because we've seen better. All right. So you can't teach persuasive genre through itself. So what happens in NAPLAN, because everybody is looking like this and everybody teaches this thing, because the more you look at this thing, the more you will understand. This is absolutely not true. And without actually, undermining your moral standards, most of the time you don't know that you have a good boyfriend until you had a bad one, or seen one. Right? You go through these experiences to actually create a picture of your life. What is it that you want? And you only know because you know perfectly well what you don't want. Okay, so what I created here is a conceptual map of how to actually work with the curriculum. And without actually answering all your questions, I suggest that this is wonderful that today the arrangement of these chairs is like this. I suggest we actually put ourselves in groups. If you want me to, I can open the curriculum if you want me to, but I probably can't because of the passwords. Never mind, this is just complicated. Everything is complicated here. Anyway, if you could collect in groups and actually try to tell me, like groups of 5 or 6 or 3, I don't really care. I'm not really, there's no holy number. And if you come up with examples of what makes you a literate person in relation to this map. I don't want to explain it unless you really have a question and you say, we don't know what social capital is, Ania. Then I will explain. Okay? But until you actually ask me directly for a definition, I just want you to work in groups. This is tutorial. I've done the lecture like there was no tomorrow. We did 2 hours last time, right? So I just want you to a little bit, gather in groups and see how you could actually answer the assignment question, which is, what makes you a literate person? How can you show to us that you actually, how do you engage in literary practices, or literacy practices? Right? If you have a map, it gets very complicated because that's how I assess. If someone says to me, I do Facebook, so does my mother. My mother is illiterate. No, don't tell her that. But you know what I'm saying? It's not a question, it's not an answer that I would expect from someone like my mother. I mean, from my mother, I expect, obviously, that, she writes emails, so that makes her literate. But my mother isn't going to go to school and teach about the concept of literacy and implement it with little children. You will. So I need an answer that is actually argumentative, academic. And academic means it has a framework. It sort of has a skeleton. It's got organs and things. So it's got a skeleton, which is the framework, and then you put flesh on it. So could you please just sort of organize yourselves in groups and just try collaboratively to actually guess how you would actually give me examples in your assignment of showing me how you engage in literacy context and what makes you a literate person. Now, I'm very happy to answer any questions which are not necessarily asking me what makes you, Ania, a literate person, but something like if you don't know what the capital is or something, then I will explain. But if you kind of think you know, go with that. We'll see how we, you can't do, it's just a good way of starting to get us think about assessment. Are you happy with that? Okay, what's a capital, by the way? Anyone knows? Anybody has read a thing about it or heard, watched television program? You obviously sit on YouTube and watch all the intellectual lectures that relate to literacy and education and psychology. There's this guy, I don't like him, but I watch him because he's really good. And I don't have it again. This one should work, but I never know. I never remember how these things work. I only teach here once every so many months. If you think it will work, nothing comes out. Somehow it comes out, but I can't remember how. No, I forgot. They teach us how to do it, but you know what? It doesn't work like Smartboard, so I just can't remember. Smartboard is so intuitive. Sapolsky, S-A-P-O. Does anyone, is this lovely person still here who has a pen? I have so many pens, you have no idea. All of them in my office. But I'll bring a pile of them here one day. I've got them all in my office, but I never managed to go to my office. Okay, for the fun of it, he's not the literacy person, he's a person who gives you education. Okay? And he's world famous. Some things you may not agree with, like things on religion. I have no idea whether he's right or wrong. Some things I'm spiritual, so I don't necessarily think that religion evolved with my blood. I just sort of don't think this way. But he gives us education, gives you a pretty good understanding about biology, evolution, sociological concepts. He's great. How is he doing this in one lecture? He isn't. He actually produces what I do. All his teaching is on his YouTube site, right? So it's like 1 million of lectures. You listen to 1, 2, 3 when you're bored, when you have nothing to do, when you wash up. You don't have to take notes. It gives you an expansion. As a teacher, you need to grow big ahead. There is a tendency in Australia, and it started, I don't know where it started. I don't want to blame anyone, but it was already present 20 years ago in the UK, which is about de-intellectualizing teachers. Right? There was a hope that we could replace all teachers with computers. Now, I come actually very strongly from the field of technology in education, and I can tell you one thing, it won't work. But there was a tendency of replacing, and there was a hope for it. And basically, there's a very famous writer, Giroux, in the States, Henry, who writes about this dream of basically making teachers just idiots. You know, all you do is just run the textbook, run the program, run the direct instruction, or whatever it is, and there. Now, if you don't watch YouTube and those lectures by Sapolsky and by other people, by neuroscientists and so on, it's not because of your comfort. You actually fall victim to those discourses. And when they come to your school, you will never be able to defend your ground. One of the reasons I can do what I want to do, and I teach the way I do, and a lot of things I do is a heresy. To tell you that Vygotsky is old and don't touch him, hardly anyone will tell you that, but I can, because I can defend my ground. So the difference between you and the difference that will make, the feature that will make a difference in your life is whether you're an educated person and can actually defend yourself and your position and have one, or basically be a follower. Up to you. I suggest this guy, watching him, when you're bored, it's pretty good. It gives you good sort of foundations of a mainstream quality American education. Quite good. The rest you can just add to it, but it's quite nice. Anyway, capital. What's capital? Money, right? Currency. You knew it. I speak English as my 5th language, so currency. Right? So what currencies do we have? We have social currency. An example of a social currency, when I talk to you, right, what is it, what's the social, so I will make a claim, but when I talk to you now, I have all the three currencies running simultaneously. So so for example, when I talk to you now, what's my social currency? I want you on my side. You are my audience, right? But I also want you on my side. I don't come here to prove to you whatever, right? To make you feel this or that bad. I want you to feel good, right? So my social currency is here. I'm creating a network of friends or of colleagues. You are my audience, but at the same time, you are kind of my network. We're networking here together, right? So you are my audience, and you are my colleagues, and you are my network. So I'm thinking of you this way. If I think of you this way, then what do? I choose particular strategies when I speak to make you feel this way so that we have an atmosphere that I want to create in this classroom, right? So that's a social currency. This is the network, and I also, through my talk, I connect you to other networks. I talk to you about YouTube. I talk to you about professional web pages and associations I will be talking about, so all of this exists. Right, so I give you strategies how you can actually not only participate in our network in a collegial way, but there are also other networks. I refer to schools as well, and myths in schools and all of that, and school practices. So we are a network here, but I'm also making you aware that there are other networks. Right? So this is the social currency that I'm exercising when I'm opening my mouth. I'm actually calling on these aspects of our life as professionals and as human beings. Okay, so that's one currency I'm using. Symbolic currency and educational. Symbols are the frames of reference that I just defined it for a student yesterday. I keep inventing. Every time I talk about it, I invent something. Which give us some sort of, how did I define it? I can't think of it. Value, resonate with us. I'm just going to think of an example. So I might come up with a good reference. So definition. So for example, if someone walks here, so a teacher walks in like me, dressed up reasonably clean. I didn't comb my hair, but I assume you can't tell. So that's all right. You assume I combed my hair. I can't comb my hair. It's uncombable. And and so and then you have a teacher who comes in and looks really bad, as if he was or she was homeless. So you can sort of give kind of give and take on attitudes like a sort of hippie 60s generation. But when they smell and all of that, all the insignia, all the indices that they actually wear don't really appear to you as a professional, right? So that's a kind of symbolic value. What kinds of frames of reference a person exhumes, a person makes salient in their behavior, in the way they speak, that actually call upon values of a particular community. So if someone walked in, and I'm smiling because it would look weird, but if someone walked in like a person who's a mature age student and would wear his war medals from some war in Afghanistan, you'd think it's a bit too much, right? But the war medals actually indicate that I'm important. I've done a service to the country, right? And a person might wear them a bit too often sometimes, but that's what it is. It's a reference to some value. I fought for this country, right? So that's a kind of symbolic. Anything that relates when people negotiate, interact with one another, and do things like I give you a gift for birthday. The gift is a symbol of love, of friendship, of I value you. So these are the kinds of values. Education, I don't hide the fact that I have a PhD, so that's my educational thing. I don't hide it, so that's my sort of educational thing. I draw on references. I do it also in a cross-disciplinary way so that you can see the depth of the insights that I bring into this classroom. I also show you my own work. So this is my own. You never find it in any textbook. They don't think that's why. That's why we don't use any, right? So I show you my own publications, the work from my own, to show you that I'm active researcher. And actually what you do here, it's actually part of my research, and I go with it. So a lot of things that you have are not only up to date, they're also just hot off the desk. This is going to be published only within, this one hasn't been yet, so it will be published like within the next 5 or 6 months. So it's still in the process of, because we're waiting for publications to be, because we're doing this book. Never mind. So these are my educational, this is the educational capital on which I draw to make sure that these classes actually, to you, don't look like a good idea alone, right? So they have actually some credentials. So networks, values, and credentials. Are you in groups, guys? You can't do these answers on your own. We have to be friends. Get together and talk to each other. Well, the first criterion in your assignment is to actually explain what literacy is, and we kind of tried to sort of tackle it last week. And whatever you come up with the literature, it will be probably a way of backing it up or counteracting whatever. But one of the other assessment criteria for your portfolio is to actually show evidence of you being a literate person, or show the context of your literacy engagements. And I'm asking you, how would you do it? I gave you a support in order to articulate your answer in relation to in some academic word, in a persuasive way, in a way that you can actually argue, as opposed to say to me, I do Facebook. Well, I don't know. What makes it a literate person? Oh, I can read and write. Well, I don't know. What does that mean? You see, I'm just pushing you all the time. So if you say to me, I do Facebook, and that shows that I can read and write, what does that mean? If you can explain. So one way or another, what I'm looking for is ways of addressing the question, in what context, what makes you a literate person? If you could actually exemplify it, I give you a framework in relation to which you could do it, and it's a curriculum framework. because the more we work with it, the easier it will be for every assignment. So this first one and for the second one. First, you take it from the personal perspective, and in assignment 2 is how you actually will devise learning activities. So the more we work with the curriculum, the more we get acquainted with how to actually read it and work with it in a way that actually you are empowered with it rather than depowered. You don't get terrified when you see 200 pages of the curriculum. Anyway, is that what makes you a literate person? Are you a literate person? How do you know? Tell me. Tell me. Not now, as a group.
For example, could I say reading children's books and discussing it?
I don't know. Well, I don't know. You have to make an argument. Okay, one of the things with what I've noticed, I've taught this unit for so many semesters by now. I inherited it and I revamped it and all of that with my own mark, but I didn't change the assignment tasks, and because I couldn't. And I think they're pretty good. One of the things I noticed in students is that students in this unit can't argue. They have no idea what an academic assignment looks like. They write assignments very often as if it was a letter to the mother. So what I need to do is actually take you through these stages, because it's one thing, I mean, it's okay for me to follow the bell curve and give everyone pass or pass conceded. But I would like to actually give it to you, low mark, if you actually earned it. So what I really mean by that is I actually want to put my 100% so that you actually know what's in my mind. So rather than actually write an answer and say, you never taught us this, what we're going to do is break down everything so that you learn the skill of academic writing. But at the same time, when I look at your assignment answer, it actually looks like an argument, not as examples that you pulled out of a straw hat. Very often this assignment 1 to students looks like, oh yeah, that's easy, I can say it. Like, oh, literacy is reading and writing. Examples of literate practices, well, I am on Facebook and I read emails. And what's the next one? Reflection on my own practices as I teach students. Oh, it was just okay. We just spent countless hours writing the letters and references. I'll reference all the pictures. That's what I get. And I return it, obviously. And then the student gets frustrated, right? Because they thought that the assignment was so easy they didn't actually have to do any work. And that's not what I want to say. So one of the things I thought, you've got a lot of resources on LearnLine, so I thought we could use today, the tutorial, for actually thinking how you would actually produce an academic answer. Can you write persuasive writing? Can you do persuasive? You'll be teaching it. Where will you draw your arguments from? As an example, yesterday I was giving advice to a postgraduate student, and he says, I want to look at NAPLAN and how it impacts on teaching and learning. Cool. Where will you get your criteria of teaching and learning from? So the student said, well, maybe we can get them. I mean, where do you get the criteria for good teaching and learning? Where do you get them from? Don't be silent. There's a website, something. That's a pretty good answer, right? There's something somewhere all the time. And I tell you something, depression is when you say nothing and do nothing. Blame is like when you say, there's nothing out there, because you get angry, right? So that's good. That's better than depression when you say nothing. And another one is a bit of hope. Well, maybe there's something somewhere. That's a pretty good answer. That's going forward, okay? Surely there will be a website somewhere. But really, as a teacher, well, with me, you use lots of resources, lots of thinking, lots of creativity, but there's still that curriculum, right? Where do you get your teaching and learning criteria? What makes effective teaching and learning? What are the outcomes? What are the actual aspirations? It's in the curriculum. Everybody gets astonished when I say that. But it's there. We have particular objectives there. They're written up there. You've got to actually take care of these objectives. They're not just there for the fun of it. Let's do the argumentative writing. That's where you get your argumentative writing has to have an order. If you don't have an order, Sapolsky would say it's schizophrenia. Do you know what schizophrenia? Not that students have it, but students sometimes indicate schizophrenia, according to Sapolsky, is when a person cannot structure things, and they see structure everywhere, which is all right. We all see structure everywhere, but they can't actually go higher above the level of detail. What does this tell you about our teaching? So they can't go above the level of detail, and they get so engaged in the detail, and they split the hair, and they go on tangents to the point, but they'll never come back to the top of the diagram. They get so involved. So schizophrenia is inability to actually hold the structure and show relationships in the structure, and getting really very often defocused and going on tangents. Now, I'll have you know that one of the reasons for schizophrenia, actually, we used to think that it's a disease of the mind and all of that. Actually, the newest research in neuroscience comes up, it's actually the problem with the music in your head. You know how our brains have timings for things. So the thoughts come one way or another. However they get processed, there's a timing, there's a rhythm. And people with dyslexia and with schizophrenia, actually, that's been found out, they have a problem with the timing. That's why a person can go on a tangent, because something went funny with timing. And all of a sudden, they lost the beat and they sit somewhere else. And that's why you sometimes on current affairs or on television, you see students with some sort of writing or organization problems may listen to classical music, because it actually soothes the brain with those alpha rhythms, waves, and actually helps the brain reorganize itself. It's quite good to actually have children exposed to this calm music. So a lot of things, what seems to be like a mental problem, actually are problems with the way how our brain actually manages information. But yes, so argumentative writing, make sure there is a structure. We know how all of this relates to each other. Make it academic, make it not schizophrenic, give it a beat, rev it up. All right, so 15 minutes, 10 minutes?